Welcome.
This is an open letter to the FGC. Please let me come inside you. That's not what I meant. Hi everyone. I know this is a different style of video than what I usually make, and it's about a topic that most of my viewership won't really care about, but once I get an idea for something I like, I have to see it through. So, let's make a roster for Capcom vs. SNK 3.
Live and let die.
If the background at all looks wrinkled or you see some dead pixels around me, it's definitely intentional and not a sign that I need a new green screen. The last Capcom vs. SNK game came out over 20 years ago, and even then, its roster was incredibly dated. It featured a whopping one character that debuted after 1997, and the game came out in 2001, so we have a lot of ground to cover with this new roster. A fighting game launching nowadays with 48 characters in its starting roster feels ridiculous. But that's how many CVS2 had when it launched, and I don't want to downsize for the game's big return. That being said, we're going to have to downsize. For this roster, I'm going to be including 22 veterans from the previous Capcom vs. SNK game, 22 newcomers, and 4 bosses. That does unfortunately mean that half of the cast of the last game is going to be cut, but I think it's worth it to get some new faces in. The best part of any crossover like this is seeing characters from different worlds interact, so I want to make sure to include a lot of characters that would have really strong interactions. Alright, let's get started with the veterans. This part's going to be pretty quick and straightforward because most of these characters are series staples and don't really need much justification for their inclusion. Starting things off, Ryu from Street Fighter. I mean, duh, he's the fighting game guy. Kyo from King of Fighters, the first protagonist of SNK's largest fighting game series that still remains incredibly relevant even though the games aren't about him anymore. Ken from Street Fighter is arguably just as important to the series as Ryu, and he pairs nicely with Terry, who's basically the face of SNK itself. Chun-Li from Street Fighter 2, the leading lady of fighting games that needs no introduction. Mai from Fatal Fury has similar notoriety as SNK's biggest female face. Also, I'm pretty sure KOF fans just actively boycott any game she's not in. We're going to diverge from parallels for a bit with Guile from Street Fighter. You know, big, strong military man whose theme goes with everything. Yeah, my wife left me, she took the kids. Guile has a lot of potential SNK counterparts. Even though none of them appeared in CVS2, SNK has a lot of characters that serve the country, that is. Is anybody watching this video? Iori from King of Fighters, Kyo's rival and the other pillar of the King of Fighters series. The only game in the series that didn't include him was the one that came out before he was created. Zangief from Street Fighter 2. You need big-bodied grapplers in any fighting game roster, and there's a specific SNK character I really want to see him go up against. It's not Athena from Psycho Soldier though. She's another King of Fighters regular and represents the classic days before SNK was all in on the fighting game scene. Blanka from Street Fighter 2 is the last of the original World Warriors I'm bringing back. He's the most unique of the bunch, and while I would love to include everyone, we only have so many roster slots to work with. Ryo from Art of Fighting, one of SNK's fighting founding fathers, half of the reason why King of Fighters even exists, and quite possibly the most important character when it comes to SNK and Capcom's relationship. And with that being said, we gotta include Dan from Street Fighter Alpha. You can't make a CVS game without Dan, the character that was created to make fun of SNK allegedly ripping off Street Fighter with Art of Fighting. Speaking of, Yuri from Art of Fighting and Sakura from Street Fighter Alpha. Another wrinkle in the who ripped off who debate, because while Dan was specifically made as a jab towards SNK, yeah, Capcom's not beating the Yuri allegations with Sakura. Capcom's not beating the Yuri allegations. You think people are going to take that out of context? Haomaru from Samurai Showdown, the last of the SNK's founding fathers, is an obvious inclusion, and he adds some variety by being a sword fighter. Cammy from Super Street Fighter 2, another Capcom icon who I would argue is even more popular now than she's ever been. For completely normal reasons, I assume. She's right behind me, isn't she? Nakaruru from Samurai Showdown. Listen, Haomaru might be the face of the game, but Nakaruru's the character that everyone actually knows. M. Bison from Street Fighter 2. When you think of Street Fighter villains, he's the one with the greatest legacy, and he parallels nicely with SNK's greatest villain, Geese from Fatal Fury.
Geese.
Last on the Capcom side of veterans, we're finally moving away from Street Fighter with Capcom's other biggest fighting game series, well, at least in the 90s. Morrigan from Darkstalkers. Do you think I'd get demonetized if I said I would kill for a new Darkstalkers? Like I would actually take a man's life? And rounding out the SNK side, the character that comes to mind whenever I think of CVS2? Rock from Gauro Mark of the Wolves. I might have just been brainwashed by Max into thinking he's the fan favorite of the game, but there's gotta be some truth to that, right? I love Rock Howard, he's just like me for real. And with that, those are the characters from CVS2 that I would bring back for CVS3. Now, I know I'm missing a couple major characters. Excuse me, sorry. I know it's never fun to have characters cut from fighting games, but if we bring back 80% of the roster from CVS2, what's the point of even making a new game? I know this is all make-believe and just for fun, but if I don't keep it somewhat realistic, what's stopping me from turning CVS3 into the next Smash Ultimate? Actually, an Ultimate Fighting Game crossover roster sounds like a really good idea for a video. Dibs. Let's get into the new characters, starting with the most obvious and expected character on the Capcom side, Juri from Super Street Fighter 4. She is the face of modern Street Fighter, whether we like it or not. I mean, personally, I like it. I like it a lot. Whether or not people are actually watching this video, I can guarantee nobody's enjoying it. Moving on to the SNK side, we have the character whose exclusion from CVS2 is the most baffling. K-Dash from the King of Fighters 99. K-Dash was headlining the KOF story at the time, and yet nobody from the NES saga made it into CVS2. That is a damn tragedy, so he definitely needs to get his spot now. And while we're on the subject of underrepresented games in CVS2, only one Street Fighter 3 rep? Come on. What's the point of even respecting the classics if you're going to completely ignore what's current?
Why are you trying to start beef with a development team from the late 90s?
Because if I don't, who will? Alex from Street Fighter 3. He's the main protagonist, another big-bodied grappler, and a fan favorite. He might not parallel K-Dash as well as the other protagonist pairs, but those two are by far the characters who deserve the spot the most. And while we're talking about characters that really deserve these spots, we have to include the newbies from each series. Shune and Isla from the King of Fighters, and Luke and Kimberly from Street Fighter 6.
Luke debuted in Street Fighter 5.
Shut up. I actually really like these four as a pairing, because Luke and Kimberly are so upbeat and energetic, while Shune and Isla are so introverted and abrasive respectively. It's just a really fun dynamic that can lead to a lot of great interactions. One of the weirdest exclusions from CVS2 is the lack of any Ikari Warriors representation. It's another classic SNK series like Psycho Soldier and has obvious Capcom military counterparts in Guile and Cammy, but nope, nobody is here. Leona is the obvious pick because she's been the leader of her division since 1996, but Ralph was actually in the original Ikari Warriors games and has a much more fun and boisterous personality to bounce off others. Based Ralph enjoyers when Silvery puts him in his weird CVS3 fanfiction. Woo! We already have representation from Street Fighter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So let's round things out with Rashid from Street Fighter 5. Dude, I love this guy. He's a YouTuber. Finally, a character for me! Most of these inclusions have been pretty safe, so let's get a little weirder. I need to see the King of Dinosaurs fight Zangief. I know some people prefer his Tizok face persona, but there's something about such a good-natured, upstanding man trying to play the heel that I just absolutely love. I don't know at which point I took the gloves off, but this video is a train wreck already, so this is on brand. When it comes to weird, cult classic Street Fighter characters, I don't think there's anyone that compares to Q, especially considering he hasn't appeared in a game since Street Fighter 3. An enigmatic character whose main defining meta trait is their mysterious absence from the series? Are there any SNK characters that could relate to that? Oh what's up, Cronin? I know one of the main complaints that people have with CVS2's roster is that the Capcom side leans far too heavily on the Street Fighter series. There are only 3 characters on the Capcom side that aren't from Street Fighter, and of them, 2 of them are still connected to the series. I also see a lot of people in their fan-made CVS3 rosters include characters like Dante and Mega Man and Monster Hunter, and personally, I really hate that. I think the people that make these kinds of rosters are heavily inspired by the Marvel vs. Capcom series, which is a great series, but to me, Capcom vs. SNK has always been about the fighting side of each company. That's what brought them together in the first place. All of this to say that I'm done adding Street Fighter characters to the roster, but the remaining Capcom representation will all come from fighting games. except for Mike Hager. I too have no idea why the mayor of Metro City hasn't been assimilated into the Street Fighter series yet, but that won't stop me from including him here. He might be too similar to Zangief, but I think this is a good opportunity to flesh out his character and make him more different. And come on, dude, you don't want to see Mike Hager throw down with the King of Dinosaurs? Also, if you're wondering why I'm not doing the same spiel about the SNK side of the roster being mostly King of Fighters characters, King of Fighters is a crossover fighting game between SNK's franchises. If we don't include King of Fighters characters, we wouldn't have a roster. Now don't worry, I'll touch on SNK's other fighting game series in a moment, but not now. Kula Diamond. Aside from her prominence and popularity, Kula is unique among this cast as an ice user. Plus, her status as a government clone would make her a decent parallel to Cammy, as weird as it sounds. CVS2 included Kyosuke from Rival Schools, but he already had his moment. Really, any Rival Schools or Project Justice character could fill this spot, but I'm going with Zaki because of her unique fighting style and personality that I think will bounce off other characters really well. Also, she may or may not be my favorite character in Project Justice. I don't know who could say. It's a mystery. But putting my bias on full display, Angel is my favorite King of Fighters character, so she makes the cut. I have a mighty need to see her and Juri interact. I want to include another Darkstalkers rep since Morrigan's the only one who ever gets any attention. I mean, for good reason. Like Zaki for Project Justice, really any Darkstalker could fill this spot, so I'm going with Xienko. She's quirky, and I think she fits the roster well, being based on Chinese culture instead of a more generic horror monster. The last King of Fighters character I'm including is the only main protagonist I haven't brought up yet, Ash Crimson. He provides a unique charge-based playstyle and would have incredible interactions with the rest of the cast. Hey, between Morrigan and Ash, who do you think serves more
Dude.
Well, I can't say that. But speaking of serving
Dude.
it's a good segue. Tessa from Red Earth is one of the more obscure characters I've included, but the game has seen a bit of a resurgence thanks to the Capcom Fighting Collection, and based on her design, she's really the only character that would fit this game. A moment of remembrance for Hydron, the Mollusk Man. I seriously considered including him for about 13 seconds. I want to include a character from Samurai Showdown 2019, and while Darlie Dagger is the obvious inclusion because she's the coolest and I want her to break me in half, she's already in King of Fighters 15, while Yashimaru has been sidelined and overshadowed in his own game by the buff pirate mommy. You know, I talked myself out of it. Sorry, Yashimaru. Darlie Dagger's in this game. She's just too goddamn cool. I offer my sincerest apologies if any of the 3 Yashimaru fans found this video. And lastly, on the Capcom side, it's been long enough without anything Power Stone related, right? Like, you could at least give them an overpriced Avatar costume in Street Fighter 6. Edward Falcon is our final character on the Capcom side. I really want to see his moveset fleshed out more, and power drives could make for a really unique mechanic. And the final newcomer for SNK, as well as the base roster as a whole, Akari from The Last Blade. Hibiki from CVS2 was a standout character, so I really wanted to include another Last Blade character. She would make a great counterpart to Xienko, both characters being based on different Asian myths and monsters. This is the full base roster for my ideal CVS3. I think it's the perfect mix between realistic potential and biased wishful thinking. I mean, of course I think that. I made it. But we still have 4 boss characters to include, and I'm going to start with the 2 that got snubbed in CVS2. Gil from Street Fighter 3 and Chrysalid from King of Fighters 99. Listen, I know one of these characters is a lot stronger than the other, but Chrysalid hasn't been in a game since 1999, and he's my favorite, and this is my video, and shut up. Those would be the normal bosses you would face after beating Arcade Mode. But if you beat it with a high enough score, just like in CVS2, you'll face off against Pyron from Darkstalkers and Shizuka from Samurai Showdown.
Is Pyron actually stronger than Gil?
I don't know, probably not, but the video's almost over. And now that completes my ideal CVS3 roster. Did you like it? Probably not. I didn't make it for you. If you've watched this far into the video, then seriously, thank you. I know this is a weird niche video, but it's my weird niche video. And if anyone got even a little bit of entertainment out of it, dude, that means everything to me. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you again when Capcom vs. SNK 3 finally does come out. Oh, that means I will never see you again. Dude, imagine if this was the last video I made on this channel and that's how I announced it. What a move.
Dude, come on.
What? The video's over. I could say it now.